All right, Raj. So the red light just came on. Are you nervous? You want to keep going? Or?
Fine.
He's good. He's good, everybody. We're going forward. Awesome. Well, why don't you do me a favor, do my listeners a favor, introduce yourself and tell them what your company is.
Okay. Raj Valli, founder and CEO of Thinkster. We are an AI-driven knowledge acceleration platform. It's a mouthful, but in a nutshell, all we are focused on is making sure that students can effectively learn what they are expecting to learn. Right now, our focus is on K through 12, but we can go through K through 16, corporate training, vocational training, certification, doesn't really matter. Because the one constant in life is that everybody wants to learn, everybody needs to keep themselves updated. How do we guarantee that you end up learning what you're expected to learn? And how do we guarantee that you learn that whatever your objective is in the shortest period of time, which is why we call it knowledge acceleration platform?
Mhm. So, I mean, so that's a pretty broad stroke. Like when we get into education and doing it in the way you're describing, kind of walk us through maybe how your guys' philosophy is, what your approach is, and how do you know that it works ultimately, right? It's so
Yeah,
subjective that like, yeah, no, I sat through the thing, but did I really learn something? So how do you guys walk through that?
totally. I think that I'm so glad that you asked the question, Jeff, because unfortunately, people have uh, focused on education as essentially a chore to complete, an objective to accomplish. And the way I think about education is the way somebody learns to ride a bicycle or learn to swim. You're not doing it because you feel like, oh, I'm going to pass a test in bicycling or swimming.
Right.
You're doing it because you're learning a skill. And if the last time you ever rode on a bicycle was 20 years ago, trust me, Jeff, I put you back on a saddle of a bicycle again. Yeah, you'll be a little wobbly for the first few minutes, but you're going to just start biking again. And the same with swimming. Essentially, learning is a very emotional and a joyous process, and something that one essentially absorbs internally, and it's not a procedural sequence of things to accomplish. And so, all we are doing is, if students, it doesn't matter what type of student they are, K through 12, K through 16, like I mentioned before, if students can be, if students can be provided an opportunity to learn things like the way they are meant to be learned, then you're going to remember those things for the rest of your life. You're not doing this because you want to pass a test, you want to, get the score, get the grade, get the diploma, right? Those things are important, but those things are going to be naturally happening to you no matter what, if you learn the way you're expected to learn. And the second part of your question was like, how do we really guarantee, right?
Mhm.
I've actually been in a room full of educators, and they look at me as like, and they feel like I just dropped in from Mars. Like, how on earth can you even talk about guarantee in the education? And I challenge back and I push back, Jeff. Uh, Find me a mom anywhere in the world belonging to any cultural or any demographic layer, any economic strata, those who are economically challenged and those who are really super rich, find me a child for that mom that doesn't speak the mother tongue.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
and like, it's a head scratcher because there is none, right?
Mhm.
And so we are talking about babies between maybe a year. Maybe there are some preternaturally gifted babies that speak probably by 9 months old or whatever it is, right? But generally, between the ages of 1 and 3, start to speak the mother tongue, and the mother can be overeducated, undereducated, not educated, doesn't really matter.
Right.
And they are able to communicate to that child their mother tongue. And by the way, language learning is the most complex one can ever think of. And
Mhm.
so we're asking ourselves, if a mother with no training or experience and with a baby that's got like this really tiny brain can latch onto a language that's really not hard and with 100% guarantee across the world, why on earth can we actually delude ourselves into thinking that 4 year olds and 5 year olds and 8 year olds are going to fail in droves, 40% failure, 50% failure in math or reading or any other subject? And so, what I'm positioning and what I'm pushing back against is this natural tendency for people to paint with a really broad brushstroke that says that, you know what, those kids are not great, or
Mm.
those kids are gifted. No, I challenge that notion that says that learning is not for the rich or for the economically privileged or those who can actually afford to give you a good teacher.
Sure.
It's just a matter of how you communicate that learning process. If a mother is correcting her kid and the kid babbles something, it's like, oh, no, honey, this, and so it happens naturally, and there's no fear.
Right.
And so when you remove fear, confidence increases, and when confidence increases, the joy of learning something because you're communicating a language, it can be the language of math or physics or biology, doesn't really matter, becomes easy, and it's not something that is artificially imposed on a human child or a human being for that matter, right? And
Right.
so all we are doing is uh, taking, I'm going to push back on something else, taking the limitations of artificial intelligence, because human intelligence has done way better than that, right? And so we are basically doing that to catch up with human intelligence
Yeah.
and doing what moms do with babies all over the world. That's all we're doing, right? That's it.
That's great. That's great. Well, how did you decide to take this on? It feels like it's obviously a pretty big mountain that you're climbing here. So what's like, what's the backstory? How did you decide that you want to jump into this and create a solution?
Yeah. Uh, First of all, I am very fortunate and grateful for the variety of experiences I've actually had in life. I grew up in
Mm.
India. I came to the US. And so I've gone to school in India. I've gone to school here. And I've actually had the privilege of being taught by different people with different styles of teaching. And I've also been and continue to be a volunteer for a nonprofit organization that's focused on providing basic education for underprivileged students in India, for example.
Mm, mm.
And I've actually seen firsthand students sitting in schools with no walls, with no blackboard, with no lights, with no toilets. And you can
Yeah.
imagine all kinds of
Sure.
challenges.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that uh, from my own background, I've actually worked in 3 different continents. I've actually had the privilege of working in 12 different industries, everything from aerospace, automotive, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, industrial controls,
Mm.
on and on and on. I'm also a certified Six Sigma black belt. I'm also a chartered financial analyst, and data is in my DNA. And
Okay.
for those who are not initiated on what a Six Sigma, I'm not a karate black belt. I'm just a Six Sigma statistical black belt. And all that means is that you are essentially saying that if you produce a million of anything, it could be a mouse or it could be a pen or a medicine, you're basically saying that can you produce that with no more than 34 defects per million of whatever you generate. I mean, in 34 per a million. I mean, that's basically saying a lot. But just to give you some context, if 34 flights fell out from the sky for or every million flights that took off, you would be like, that's not a good number, right?
No, no, not at all.
So so just to give you context, it's not that big because human beings are doing certain things with way beyond that as well.
Mhm.
And so, why on earth can we not basically make sure that among a million students, no more than 34 fail, right?
Mhm.
Even
Mhm.
that is not acceptable in the aerospace example I gave you. So the notion here is that what I realized, Jeff, is that, and I was part of Honeywell Aerospace at that time. It was a $10 billion company, and it had partnered with NASA to send a Mars rover to Mars. And they were talking about landing this metal box within a precision of 20 square kilometers in Mars, where no human being yet is yet to set foot in another planet. So I looked at that and I said, like, it's not for the lack of human ingenuity that we are not able to solve problems. So don't tell me that human beings cannot solve the problem of solving how students in K through 12 or college can actually accomplish a lot more things and learn things to the guarantee. That was my like big aha moment. And I said, like, technology can do all kinds of magical stuff. Human beings are capable of doing all kinds of magical stuff.
Mhm.
And the pursuit that we are on, in my mind, is not magical, is very doable. And
Mhm.
otherwise, if it was magical, I would be having my own second thoughts, right? So that was the basis on why I started this journey.
That's interesting. There is a lot of energy, I think, around education, and I think that's a product of maybe COVID, right? Just this, how we were just education. I work with a lot of startup companies who are just trying to tackle different various degrees of what education
Yeah.
means, and maybe our world right now. Where do you kind of draw, selling propositions? How do you kind of talk about this in a potentially pretty crowded space right now? Like what are some of your verbiage? How are you talking
Well,
about what you
so I'm going to talk about two or three different perspectives here,
do? Hmm.
Jeff, and they are, I think, very important. Education technology has been around for 15, 20 years, 30 years, ever since computers have been, around
Sure.
us,
Hmm.
and but kids still fail.
Hmm.
So there is
Yeah.
still 40% failure in grade 4 math, and whatever, 40 or 50% failure in grade 8 math and reading and all of those things. And if you look at the PISA results, students are failing. This is a
Hmm.
fact, right? And so the thesis means is that if you're trying to do certain things and the results are not changing, it's time to change the way you're doing things. This is
Right.
it's been misattributed to Einstein and Ben Franklin. I don't know who said this, but I think it really makes sense. And so my point here is that so what is the so what, right? What's the so what? What needs to change, right? In my mind, I think that broadly, people have looked at the problem statement as if we can give students the ability to actually consume better content. Like Sal Khan has done a fantastic job of flipping the classroom, where he's saying that you don't need to be in a lecture hall. You can go listen to a teacher teach a concept differently. That's fantastic, and he has solved the problem. We are looking at it as a companion problem that we are solving, which
Mm.
essentially says that, well, flipping the classroom is awesome, but people always know that there is a difference between chalk and talk. You can explain to me a concept in algebra, and I think I get it. But
Hmm.
you give me 10 homework problems, Jeff. The very first homework problem, I was staring in my at my notebook, and I was like, how did Jeff do this? Like, I thought I understood this, right?
Right.
So
Right.
when you convert chalk and talk into, do I have I absorbed what I was taught in a classroom or in a video?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
when actual learning happens. It's a very internal, unfortunately, a very personal process.
Yeah.
Everybody has to have that experience of sitting down and trying to absorb what was taught and translating that into learning that's somehow filtered into your brain, right?
Hmm.
We talk
Hmm.
about that as the point of learning. And so the point here is that we are essentially saying that if we can make sure there is data in the way we approach learning. So for example, the same example I gave you, there is chalk and talk. I've watched a video. Now I'm trying to sit down and solve a problem. I'm stuck. What do I do, right? I can wait for my older sibling to come and help me, or my mom and dad, or maybe a tutor in a tutoring session. What we are saying is that when you're stuck, we're going to give you probably a video that offers a similar solved problem, right?
Right.
So it
Right.
helps you in the instant. But then there is something called as every student in a classroom, the bell curve. We'll talk about the bell curve in a second because I have a very completely contrarian idea about the bell curve. But every student actually is going through the learning process. And what we call as, and this is very well known in the education space, there's this zone of proximal development, which is you're in a zone where you're capable of learning on your own, but you're capable of learning a little bit more with some help. But no matter, and there is a zone which is outside the zone of proximal development, which is no matter what I do to help you, you're never going to learn that. An
Mm.
extreme example is I'm teaching Fourier transformation to a third grader. It's never going to
Mhm.
happen, right?
Right.
I can put a Nobel laureate in front of a third grader. It's not going to happen, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
how do we keep students in that zone of proximal development where they are capable of learning? And so this is where artificial intelligence comes in, because what we are saying is that not only do I find out what are you expected to learn, maybe I'm a fourth grader and I'm expected to learn two-digit multiplication, and that's part of my curriculum, and I'm expected to learn that. But am I capable of learning that? Because do I have the foundational basis for me to learn that? That will differ from multiple students in a classroom, and maybe I'm not yet ready for two-digit multiplication if my foundation on single digit multiplication is weak, right? I
Hmm.
could be And so there's no point in, so you're going to end up frustrating me as a student. And so what our AI system does is that it finds out not only what am I supposed to learn, me, the student in third grade,
Mhm.
but also finds out what am I capable of learning. So when you remove, because if you give me something that I am not capable of learning, frustration sets in, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
the idea here is if we can personalize, and if I can be given what I'm capable of learning, then frustration is lowered,
Mhm.
fear is lowered, confidence is increased, and a confident kid who is fearless is actually an amazing student who's going to start cracking things at a much faster pace. And all we are doing is, it's like this, right? If you speak German to me and I don't know a word of German, uh, whose fault is it if you give me a math problem in German, I have no idea how to answer that, right? So you
Right. Right.
simply have to speak my language, and all we are doing using technology is providing the tools for a teacher in a classroom or a tutor in a public the supplemental learning domain to make sure that they can then get the benefit of analysis and data and insights from AI that can help them understand, okay, this is what little Johnny needs to learn. This is where little Cindy needs to learn. And so they're using our systems to personalize the learning experience, which means that every student is now on an accelerated path of learning and learning that happens for life, not because it's a procedural or whatever else it is. And that's what we're doing. And so the problem here is that AI is one of the best things that could have happened. I mean, we actually were in AI before OpenAI became cool. We acquired a company in 2020. We got a patent in 2021. So we have our own, we have multiple patents and everything else. And so what we're doing is that as we roll down in the next 6, 12, 18 months, there are going to be companies that are really capable of using AI to transform how a teacher in a classroom can actually deliver personalized learning. Or in a tutoring context, by the way, the tutoring market is 65 to 70% comprised of small mom and pop tutoring companies, which one person tutoring companies are, they cannot invest in AI technology. They can't do any of those things, right? It's
Right.
like trying to talk to a local taxi driver in the corner of the street and say, do you have the Google Maps and everything else integrated? And of course not, right? And
Mhm.
so that's where Uber and Lyft is essentially consolidated and hyper fragmented taxi market.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're doing for the tutoring side, but we're also going after the school side because we have gotten fantastic input from teachers, because one of the things that they are grappling with on the school side is the same thing, that how do we use AI to transform the lives of students, not just this chat GPT, what looks really interesting but it's not going
Sure.
to move the needle type of work, right?
Right. You kind of hinted at it just a second. I want to focus a little bit on this target audience that you're mentioning. So I guess when you're in your mind, you're thinking about Thinkster. Are you thinking it is a school district rolling this out? Is it the tutors that you're speaking of, like
Yeah.
that portion of it? Is it more for just my son is struggling with some eighth grade math? I download, I sign up. Like, walk me through target audience kind of in your mind with maybe a little more detail.
our our bones and what we've been operating on for the last several years is in the direct to consumer tutoring segment. We have thousands of students in 30 plus countries, and we have actually been able to guarantee, and you can see all of those case studies, before after case studies, on our website. So our bread and butter at this point in time is the tutoring market. We are focused on organizing the tutoring market. Basically, that's hyper fragmented as the taxi market was before Uber and Lyft came on and organized that. So we are organized. And by the way, that's a problem statement that is existing across the world. Go to China, go to Latin America, same problem statement. So our
Mhm.
focus is on organizing the tutoring market. However, we are also seeing that the teachers who are teaching supplemental in the tutoring section, post 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., or teachers in a classroom, and they've fallen in love with the technology and saying, hey, we can also use your same technology to go after the school market. And we are looking at it as a channel difference. Big
Mhm.
focus is organizing the tutoring market, but not everybody can afford supplemental tutoring by paying lots of dollars. And there are lots of students who are actually in school districts that are economically challenged, or having students from economically challenged backgrounds, and we want to make our product and technology available for teachers in those districts as well, so those students can also benefit from the fantastic tech that we have created for
Sure.
accelerating student outcomes.
Sure. So, let's walk into a little bit around, it feels like you're creating very personalized learning for many different potential personality types and all this stuff.
Yeah.
How does scale even fit into this equation
Yeah.
if my son learns different than your child might, and
I,
areas,
I,
regions, all the things you're mentioning? What is scale in this space?
I, on one hand, it looks like it's a really big problem, but I'm going to
Mhm.
actually tell you an example, share you an example that scales, and you're not even thinking about it.
Okay.
I use Google Maps, and I am in China or in South Africa or in India or in New York City.
Mhm.
You walk out of your hotel home and you want to go to work. Google Maps basically tells you a personalized direction that's the most efficient way to get to work or whatever destination you need to get to. How do they do that? It's personalized for you, right? I mean, and they're doing it billions of times every minute,
Yeah.
right? That's pretty much what we do here, right?
Mm.
What
Mm.
we're doing is that we actually are agnostic to uh, race, gender, age, country, culture, because our tech is focused on we know where we are. And all we're doing, and just giving you an example of, because I used the analogy for Google Maps, all we're doing is imagine you slice my head, just figuratively, right? But you slice my head and you poke into my head and you see something like a Scrabble board or a chess board. And you see
Mhm.
all these, let's say it's a 10 by 10 matrix of, tiles and everything else. And that are highlighted green, yellow, red, and gray because I have not tested. And you look at that grid and you say, probe, what does Raj know about third grade math at that given point in time? Fast forward in 9 months, he needs to know every single tile to be painted green.
Mhm.
I am essentially creating a starting point A for Raj or Jeff and an
Mhm.
ending point that needs to be green, all of those tiles painted green. All I'm doing is it's a beautiful data science problem that I'm personalizing. Okay, this is where Jeff or Raj is, and this is where they need to get to. What is the fastest way to go from point A to point B, which is exactly what Google does, by the way.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what we have done.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a good analogy. I guess it really does paint that picture the right way. Well, I guess now inside of that though, um, how does curriculum look and develop? How is it customized? Is that a teacher's doing, a tutor's doing? Is that
Yeah,
all AI doing it? How is that then getting developed? I guess very quickly. I would also imagine, right? And so this wouldn't be something like, yeah, I'll get back to you in 6 months with a perfect
right.
plan for you, right? So how does that work?
I feel like you've been on the inside of our platform, right? Because you've thought through all these problem statements, right? The beauty of curriculum, Jeff, is that I can walk into any Barnes and Noble or Amazon and buy a math curriculum for sixth grade math or 10th grade math in the US or UK or Singapore. It doesn't really matter, right? I have
Yeah.
the textbooks. So the good news is that the entire world of curriculum has already been organized across the world for all curriculums and all standards and everything else. The beauty is that they still teach 3+5 in the UK as well as in the US, right?
Hmm.
And so what we do is we have a very skills-based architecture. We call it the Lego brick architecture for ease of reference, because you can use a Lego brick to build a boat or build a plane or build a house, right?
Hmm.
And all
Hmm.
we're doing is that, okay, 3+5 belongs to this Common Core standard here in the US, or this California state standard, or this Texas state standard TEKS, or a levels and O levels in the UK or Australia or any other country in the world. And all we are doing is taking that piece, fragment, and saying this fragment as a skill belongs to this curriculum standard for this country across the world. That's a fairly easy mapping with a little bit of elbow grease. And that's all we do, right?
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, and so if you don't know 3+5, you're expected to know at least 3+1 before I can teach you 3+5,
Mhm.
right? So the way we teach math is not that complicated, to be honest, right? If we think about this correct in the correct manner. So what we are doing is, and this is why I'm not comparing ourselves to Khan because he has done phenomenal stuff and we are aspiring to do what he has done, obviously.
Mhm.
But he has done essentially the same approach by saying he's flipping the classroom. We are basically flipping the learning process and making it a much more joyous and less frustration free, more frustration free process. And so if we can personalize using the curriculum that belongs to whatever levels and country and culture and all of those things, then it's that much easier for us to actually accelerate the learning curves for any student across the world.
Wow. Wow. How do you navigate then, like, criteria for like selecting the like tutors, selecting the people, like, or is it more of a matchmaking for your
Yeah,
region or area?
yeah. So love this interview, right? So, so I have three girls, and I go to the bowling alley. They're much older now, but when they were kids, I go to the bowling alley, and what is the first thing that I do? I put the girders on, because no matter how they throw the ball, it's going to
Yeah.
hit the pins, right? Because the girders are there, right? We
Mhm.
have same girders in a tech context, and we are saying that you can be whatever teacher or tutor you are, but these girders are going to make sure that it's going to help you guide what you're expected to teach, because it's going to give you all these nuggets of information. In fact, one of the founding principles of our product and technology is that everything that we do, Jeff, is transparent, explainable, auditable, and understandable. Because if we hold ourselves, there is no hocus pocus black box magic that's going on here. If
Sure.
you are my teacher, you come into the system, you know, okay, Raj is a student of mine, and he's where this is where he is, and this is why he's struggling on these particular areas. And the AI, actually, our AI, there is the open AI, ChatGPT, and other
Yeah.
things that we layer on top of our AI, and the whole thing explains everything to the teacher, the parent, the student, the administrator. It doesn't really matter, because first of all, we have nothing to hide, right? Because we're talking about accelerating student outcomes here. And so when we have the approach of everything that we do is going to be super transparent, and we are going to do this in this way, and everybody knows, oh, it's AI, but it's AI that's explainable. Oh, I can understand why the AI is making these recommendations. There is no voodoo magic here, black box,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
and so then everybody starts believing in the system because it's transparent. I can go
Right.
back and check, why did the AI make the recommend? Oh, this is because of this, and this reason. Okay,
Mm.
awesome, I get it, right? And so when you develop that confidence, and that's actually not too different from what Uber and Lyft have actually done in the taxi market, right?
Right.
Before Uber and Lyft, going to the airport, I don't know whether it's going to take me an hour and a half. Is it $100,
Yeah.
$200? Who knows, right?
Right.
But
Right.
now you can share your ride with your loved ones, and it'll
Mhm.
tell you, okay, Jeff is going to reach the airport at 8:45 in the morning and probably spending $75.85. Boom, you're done,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Same levels of transparency
Right.
finally in education, right?
Yeah. No, that's great. I'm gonna tie a couple things together here around maybe like student progress and potentially a lot of cooks in the kitchen, right? So I have to imagine that there's some measuring of student progress that's happening, right?
Yeah,
But then you would have potentially teacher, parents, the student themselves, and a potential tutor all having an opinion, I would imagine, about said progress,
trust me.
right? So yeah. So I mean, you're mentioning transparency, awesome, but transparency now is different between potentially everybody looking at.
That's right.
Again, the sky is blue for me, but somebody else I bring in here like I would call it light gray, and you're like, oh, okay, So how is where is truth in that,
Yeah.
right?
So, great question, Jeff. There is, by the way, you're 100% right. Right.
Yeah,
What we call as there is an internal metric that we have, which is the student has to make objective progress in achieving their milestones.
right, right,
That's an internal metric. That's very definitive, and we know that the student is where they are, and we know that they have to do a certain thing to get to where they need to be, because that's an objective technical metric, if I can call it that. But
sure.
that's there is no heart in that, technically speaking, right?
Mhm,
Just
mhm.
to your point, right?
Yeah, yep.
So a parent may come in and say, that's all great, Raj, but my kid actually has an assignment or a test in fractions 2 weeks from now,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And
Yeah,
your plan is to get to fractions 3 or 4 weeks from now. I need my child to be ready for that fractions test, right?
right.
Which
Mhm.
we wouldn't know, because the teacher decided in their school that they have a fractions test, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, I wouldn't know that, right?
right.
So what we have is the concept of, by the way, I by now you probably realize that I'm sharing examples from different industries, because we've actually used those examples in the
Sure.
way we
Yeah, yeah,
brought it, right?
mhm. Yeah,
The music playlist exactly works like that, Jeff. What you like at 4 o'clock on a Friday evening as music is not the same music you want to have for your commute on Monday morning, right?
sure, sure, right.
You don't want to
Yeah,
have party music at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, right?
right, yeah, yeah,
So what we do is we have developed this concept called playlist. There is an AI playlist, which is going to be what I call as the technical objective, really focused playlist that's going to give you the
mhm, mhm.
performance improvement. But there is also a parent playlist, which is like parent knows something that you and I don't know. So the parent will make a request saying, "Hey, there is a fractions test that's coming up in 2 weeks. I want my son or daughter to be given some training and experience and some learning in fractions. So we give a parent requested playlist.
Hmm.
We also have teachers who are obviously intelligent, and on many ways they think that AI is like, right, I know better, right? And we trust that because there is experience layer that's coming in, and from that perspective, because you don't know AI, that the child was actually down with the flu last 4 days, and I know
Right.
that, you know that because I've spoken to the mom. And so
Yep.
obviously the teacher actually has, or tutor actually has, a better vantage point. And so we basically allow two things for the tutor to do. They can override the AI recommendations. I don't want the student to do this because I know something better than what the AI can know.
Hmm.
Or they can pause it and put it in the back burner and say, here is what I want because the mom has spoken to me, or I have some other information. There is a tutor recommended playlist. Exactly. So to your point, we do have these if I can call it silos of playlists, if I can call it that, and depending on what your objective is, that's how you solve the problem.
Wow. Wow. So I look at everything from the marketing eye. This feels, well, as you're describing, it all makes sense. But marketing this, there's a lot of sides to the there's a lot of entry points as to where marketing would fit in.
That's
How
it.
do you guys think about it in terms of putting together this narrative? This, we're 30 minutes in. How do you put this into like door number one, door two, door three, door four, door
Yeah,
five for
yeah.
people to see the value of this?
Yeah, excellent question once again, Jeff. So the way we think about this is that at the end of the day, marketing is about solving somebody's problem, the pain point, and all we are talking about is that if we can talk about the pain points that typically parents have, since you're talking about the tutoring
Yeah.
landscape, and there are two types of pain points here. In fact, maybe I'll digress for 30 seconds about the structure and conduct and performance of the tutoring industry per se. If you are a parent, and by the way, I've had direct experience, I'm pretty sure there are parents like me and you that have direct experience. When you need to find a tutor for your kid, 90% or 95% of tutors out there, and I say this extremely respectfully, but this is because this is the way the market is functioning right now, are mercenaries out to make a quick $50 on a Saturday evening.
Yeah. Mhm.
Nobody is waking up, Jeff, on a Saturday morning and say, I want to be the rock star tutor, and I'm going to just do so much goodness in society that I'm going to really remarkably transform the lives. There are 5, 8, 10% teachers, tutors who believe in that, right? But
Mhm.
most of them are there because they feel like this is a nice side job. I can make a side hustle. I can make some money on the side, right?
Mhm.
So, but as a parent, who do you want? The 10% or the 5% tutor, not the 90% tutor, right?
Right.
And the good tutors don't enter the system, or those people, I'm almost willing to bet my bottom dollar that even the 90% tutor are very motivated, to be honest, if they were given the choice or the chance. The
Yeah.
problem there is that most of them feel like, oh, this month I may make $200, maybe next month I make $1,000. It's not a
Mhm.
consistent stream of income, right? And
Yeah.
so that's going to be a challenge. And
Yeah.
so parents are frustrated, teachers are frustrated. A student, trust me, I don't want to be a student that's been forced to sit through 20 tutoring sessions if I can learn my stuff in 5 tutoring sessions, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
when I show up as a student, I want the teacher to know, the tutor to know, what do I know? So all we are saying is that, hey, if you're a parent, if you're frustrated about what's out there, come to us. We guarantee outcomes or money back. By the way, nobody has asked for money back because we walk our talk, right?
Yeah.
It's a performance guarantee, right? So you do
Mhm.
these things, you're never going to fail. You're actually going to meet your objectives. So to the parent, our marketing positioning has always been compare us, actually challenging parents to compare us with the competition. And we are saying we're going to give you not only the outcomes that your desires of, because the only guarantee in today's tutoring market that a parent currently gets is the guarantee that they'll actually pay money for tutoring services, not the
Mhm.
outcomes, right? They're going to pay
Right.
money.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
guarantee, right? We're
Mhm.
changing that. And the second thing we are saying is that you're going to get background checked, uh, you know, trained, certified tutors who are in our ecosystem, who are there because we guarantee, by the way, a minimum of between $2,000 to $6,000 per month to a tutor, as long as they're good and they can actually deliver their job and they're committed to that job. Then more tutors want to actually come and work with us because obviously they're getting a consistent stream of income, all of those things. And so tutors are happier, parents are happier, and the student is actually getting accelerated outcomes. And so our spiel is basically talking about, we're going to make all of your lives a lot easier because we're going to get the best tutors, the students who want the best experience, and parents who really want results. And on the student side as well, you've noticed that it's not about, I can put the best tutor in front of a kid, I can put the best curriculum and content in front of the kid, but if the student is not motivated, all bets are off, right? And so our product actually has multiple engagement layers. We actually pay students to do math. I'm not kidding. Like, they get $5 physical of cash back every month if they do their work, right? They can go get it at Fandango, Walmart, Apple,
Yeah.
Amazon, doesn't matter, right? And all that matters is that if they watch a video, it could be passive learning, active learning. Hey, kiddo, you watched the video, 50 coins, right?
Mm.
You watch something else, and 7,500 coins translates to $5 physical. And there are other things that you're working through. So
Right.
the goal here is to, a motivated student is a confident student. A confident student is an amazing student who are actually going to accomplish their learning objectives that they set out to do, right? So
That's great. Well, let's move over a little bit to just kind of fundraising, the business itself right now. I know right now you're doing an active raise.
yeah,
We'll have a link in the show notes here if anybody wants to go check out. But you built a massive machine right now. How is fundraising sort of fit into just the structure of the business? Just
right.
Because you're connecting a lot of sides to this coin too, right? From
Yeah. Don't,
teachers,
don't.
right? A lot of decisions. So how does fundraising fit into the
So
overall business plan?
our objective for fundraising is not just fundraising, it's actually a double bottom line impact. What we want is, we want this to be a parent owned tutoring company. What
Mm,
is guaranteed is that uh, tutoring is here to stay because students need help, all of those things. So supplement learning is here to stay. And we are essentially telling parents that, would you rather want to be a participant in an ecosystem of a company that you own a piece of? And there are multiple objectives for parents to own a piece of that. It's not only for their kids, but they can also say, hey, you know what, in 5 years I want you to be doing this, or next year I want you to be doing not just
mm,
math but this. So parents can have a seat at the table to actually direct the growth of the company. And this is a global company. And so
right.
what we're saying is that, imagine if I was a taxi driver and that was my profession for the rest of my life, would I
Hmm.
not want to be a part owner of the company I'm actually working
Sure.
for? And so what we're saying is that if you're a parent, if you're a tutor, if you're, what we want is that it's like, I know this doesn't exist, but in years ago, Saturn used to be an employee-owned car company, right? And
Mm,
there was a reason why. And I'm not a Saturn owner and never owned a Saturn. I still know it because I've heard about that, right?
yeah.
And so
Hmm.
there is a certain level of expectation for a company that's owned by tutors and parents and the consuming public,
Yeah.
because you're held to a different standard, right? And in
Right.
fact, if you go look at our About Us section, we talk about being around for 500 plus years.
Mm,
Exactly like the way you don't question Harvard or Yale or Princeton whether they're going to be around. We are saying that we are not building this company for us, for you and me. It's for 10 generations from now, 20
right.
generations from now. Because once you build that kind of a company, nobody questions whether, I mean, in certain rare cases, I know schools are being shut down because of budgets and everything else. We don't want to be that kind of a company. We want to be a company like Harvard or Yale or Princeton or any of those institutions, because you trust the institutions to do a damn good job.
Yeah, yeah. That's so. It also seems to me from hearing this, conversation and what I research is like partnerships and collaborations feels like probably a pretty big piece of the pie chart in terms of things to focus on and again bring in whatever these look like. Is that something that you think about in terms of like finding these types of partnerships to help grow or have these bigger steps or just validation? Like,
Yeah,
do you guys think about that a little bit?
yeah, 100%. In fact, if you look at the world, and this gets into both e-commerce as well as tutoring in general, as well as several other marketplaces,
Hmm.
the biggest expenditure for a direct-to-consumer digital tutoring company like ours is basically marketing spend on Facebook and Google. Now
Yeah.
imagine 100 companies are spending the same dollars
Hmm.
going after the same market audience, but we are currently in math. Tomorrow we can partner with a reading company or a coding company or some other company, and we can all go after the same eyeballs. But then if it comes from the same trustworthy source like Thinkster, then parents are more willing to engage with us. So partnership is actually a key part of our growth, primarily because our objective is to actually do good by teachers, tutors, parents, students. That's our end goal. You want to make
Hmm.
money in the process, right? We're not in a
Yeah.
hurry to just make profits. We are basically saying, if we do the right things, profits will come. It has to be
Sure.
there. So
Right. So, without maybe thinking about yourself, how do you think the future of education is? What does it look like? Where are we 15 years from now? Like where are we going in your mind right now?
I'm really happy and excited about the future of education, partly because of AI, partly because of tech. The sobering reality, unfortunately, Jeff, is that you're going to get a billion more students in the next 10 to 15 years. The UNESCO UNDP World Population Statistics basically say that you're going to get another billion babies in 10
Hmm.
years, right? And right this minute, you have a need for hundreds of thousands of schools to be available this very second to take care of students who are already babies and kids and wanting to go to kindergarten and everything else. And even in the US, you're talking about classrooms having 20, 25 students per classroom for a 30, $40 million school facility that works between maybe 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
So it's not a good productive asset utilization strategy if you really think about it, right? And
yeah.
the growth is coming. And the question I always ask is that I say this to parties and friends and everybody else, and I say, like, how many people in your network of everybody who LinkedIn, Facebook, everybody is dying to become a school teacher? And generally the answer is like, I have no idea, right? and,
Yeah.
and and so human beings are basically saying that, but when you buy a house, you're saying, okay, I want to buy a house in a place with a good school system, right? And so we
Mhm.
are over indexing on something but not realizing the fact that people are not choosing this as a profession, right? And there is a
Right.
reason why, because teachers have been under invested in terms of technology and the support that they need to actually get. If they get, how many of us would be, professionals and business people if we didn't have excellent PowerPoint and email and all of those things? Like, who's going
Sure.
to touch that, right? So
Yeah.
what we're saying is that I think technology is going to have an outsized impact on the profession of teaching, of education per se, how schools will function. What kind of facilities will they get access to that can actually have them provide what we call as precision personalization for every student, so they can actually help every student reach their capacity and outcomes and everything else. And so my view of the world is that in 15 years things are going to be dramatically different for the better
Yeah.
because of technology aiding teachers and not replacing them, because I don't see a future where teachers are ever going to be replaced, because a human in the loop is so important for many, many things, and that's a separate podcast by itself, I think, right? But, but that's how I'm seeing it. The future is going to be absolutely fantastic, but with the right investments in tech, and that's what we're leading.
Yeah. What's keeping you up at night right now?
Trying to make sure that this message, this is why we raised the campaign as well on crowdfunding, because it
Mhm.
needs to get to more people who actually understand the value of what we're trying to do. We
Mhm.
don't want to spend our way into growth. We want to have other people knowledgeable about what we're doing and how passionate we are about what we're trying to do to actually change education out there, to get to know about us. And this is the double bottom line. Investor is great, but I want you to be an investor, customer,
Sure.
into your own dog food and help us get even better, right?
Right. 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 Well, where should people go? Like, if they want to dive into your world, where should we send them? And how can they learn more information?
Yeah, so there is they can go to our website, which is hellothinkster.com. They can learn about this, about our product, about our stack, about our pricing, everything else. If they want to know about fundraising and what we're trying to do with the support of Start Engine, they can go to
Mhm.
startengine.com/I think Thinkster Learning. You can put the link
Mhm. Yep.
in your thing. But so if it's funding, by the way, again, a double bottom line impact, right? When people invest in our company, we actually give them discounts off of for becoming customers as well. So it's
Cool.
our goal has been, from the get-go, this is a double bottom line impact. We don't want you to be just customers. We want you to be investors. We don't want you to be just investors. Also think about being customers, right?
That's awesome.
Or
Well,
tell your
Raj.
friends. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We want everybody out sharing.
Yeah.
Well, Raj, we're gonna pivot. We're gonna not talk about anything education. We're gonna do our five final questions here. First one is: are you watching any TV shows right now, or anything that you're watching that's piqued your interest?
Okay, I generally have this passion for tennis, and the Wimbledon is going on,
Yeah.
and so my cheat time is to have coffee and just watch the highlights of Wimbledon. That's, or 4 times a year: U.S. Open, Wimbledon, French Open, and Australian Open, right? So
That's nice. Nice. How about books? Are you reading any books right now?
I do read several books. The ones that I'm currently reading on are mostly around philosophy and artificial intelligence and things like that. So multiple books that I focus on at this very moment in time. So
Very cool. How about podcasts? Do you listen to podcasts regularly?
I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I just need to keep reprioritizing them because the list keeps
Yeah.
popping up. But
Yeah.
I've actually become a huge fan of the podcast called Acquired, where they actually talk about companies at like 2-3 hours depth. It's almost like getting a master's thesis in an industry. So I really love that podcast.
Yeah, that's cool. How about like places you go just to get information? Are there specific to your vertical, and are there just kind of, man, I go here and I just grab a lot of info.
Yeah. I fortunately have the voracious reading bone. So I've subscribed to Apple News Plus,
Mm,
and I generally consume something like 50,000 words per week, from everything from popular science to Scientific American to National Geographic to Mac rumors to, it's not just tech, but I also ingest a lot of politics and science and far left field and far right field work, because I feel like sometimes the best ideas are integrated ideas you can develop by reading a
yeah,
lot of subjects, right?
yeah, I would agree.
So,
How
yeah.
about music? You listening to music right now?
I do listen to a lot of music. Actually, my kids actually have me exposed to a lot of what I call as Western pop. But I actually listen to a lot of Indian classical music too. So that's actually what floats my boat.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, Raj, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're busy. You're in the middle of a campaign, a lot of stuff going on. This was a great conversation. And I look forward to kind of watching and see what you're doing and getting involved and sharing as much as I can. But this is really great stuff. And yeah, keep at it, man. I think you're onto something.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for giving us the opportunity as well.
No problem. Thanks so much.
Thank you.